David, I'm so glad we've got you on the show for particularly this episode because you're one of my favorite observers of our current president, Donald J. Trump. You're one of my favorite Trumpologists. And folks, Donald, he's been on fuego this week. And, he is more senile than he was a couple of years ago. Like, I think the seams are starting to show a little bit with Donald. But he can still throw some gas. He's still got some high heat. And I'd like to sort of characterize several of Trump's comments, public comments from this week. And I'm going to quote/paraphrase our good friend Jake from Pendejo Time, who says, "I like Trump's current mood of I'm fat as fuck and will not see heaven. Been there, brother."
Yeah, the thing that if in 2018 you told me that like between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, the one of them whose senility would more resemble the movie Big Fish would be Donald Trump. Like, I would never believe you, right? Because you would figure Donald Trump would be the, Betty Draper's dad type.
Right.
But that's Joe. No, it turned out he was such an asshole that he was furious about the fact that he was losing his mind. Where Trump, it's like, it's like taking a bath it's like how they describe slitting your wrist in The Godfather Part 2.
Yeah. It's the one thing that I would have thought, like, it just lets me sort of dream on how close we might actually be to it happening at this point. The idea, like, I would have thought the last thing that Trump would manage to achieve as a person was like whimsicality. And he's more or less there at this point. Like, he's still, it's funny because it's like he'll say incredibly like awful, racist, stupid shit. But then at the very end of it, he's like, but when you die, the worms eat you, and it's not so bad. Maybe you gotta eat too. I'm like, I wouldn't have thought that he would be able to get to that level, but he's like kind of just hanging out in that little pocket now much of the time that you see him. Like, whenever he's on Air Force One, he is 100% thinking about dying the entire time.
David, the first comments I want to talk about of Trump's thoughts on death and the afterlife did occur on Air Force One when he was asked by Peter Doocy of Fox News his thoughts on the recent Gaza peace or ceasefire. And Doocy asked him, "Do you think this helps you get into heaven?" And Trump's reply off the cuff was, "I don't think there's anything that's going to get me into heaven. I think I'm not heaven bound." And I love the second sentence there. "I think I'm not heaven bound."
Yeah.
Because it's like, usually the phrase is hell bound. So he's sort of leaving, he's just, I'm not saying I'm going to hell. I'm just saying I'm not heaven bound.
Yeah.
And what I love about this is like, what is it like? What does it mean to have the president of the United States opine openly that when he dies, he is not getting into heaven because of all the things he's did in his life that render him unable to enter the kingdom of God?
Not in a way that like reflects any like insight or regret either. He's sort of like, well, you got to think about it. Like, it's like 5 decades of sex crimes, right? So like, I don't have time to like sort of run back the odometer on that and get myself like where I need to be.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen this, but like, from the more like, earnest, like the Hillsdale grads, like the people who work for the White Picket Fence Project and, the Neighbor Foundation, all the new NatCon think tanks, they have been incredibly distressed by it. And it's very funny because we were talking about the Melanie Mac guys who were like, "I had a dream I was in heaven and you weren't there, and it's awful. There's still time to save you, Melanie." That's what these guys sound like.
Yeah.
Like, Donald Trump is now just Melanie Mac. He kind of always has been, and they both sort of made their name cosplaying as Laura Croft. But it is like I saw all these Christian think tank guys with fiance gums being like, "I hope that there's a godly man close to him. Maybe God is doing this to draw out the frauds on his prayer team." And it's like, yep. That is what is happening. Like, if hell is real and Donald Trump doesn't go to it, it's like, well, then no one's going to hell.
Right. Like,
no one's down there.
Yeah, and it's sort of like we talked about this on Monday, but like, I mean, in a way, it's liberating because I've long believed that not a single U.S. president is in heaven, if such a thing exists. But like Donald Trump, definitely not getting into heaven, but we've also compiled, like, this is not the first of his musings, sort of his existential musings about death and the afterlife. There's a couple other ones I want to bring up from August of this year. It says here, President Trump dialed into Fox and Friends Tuesday morning and revealed his newest and truest motivation for brokering an end to the war in Ukraine. He's worried he might not get into heaven after he dies. I want to try and get into heaven, if possible, he explained. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons. And then he goes on to say, there's a certain point at which you don't want to hear happy birthday, he said when he turned 78. You just want to pretend the day doesn't exist. He also then said, my father lived a long time. My mother lived a long time, and they were happy, and they were great. So maybe we're going to live a long time. I hope so. But other times he confessed he was not sure his father made it past the pearly gates. I know my mother's in heaven, he said at Madison Square Garden rally in October. I'm not 100% sure about my father, but it's close.
That's at the Madison Square Garden rally? Yeah. So this is like Tony Hinchcliffe warms everybody up by getting up there with just some incredible material. He's like, you guys ever seen Dominicans? Disgusting. and then Trump gets up there and is just sort of like, my dad is probably in the lake of fire. My mom, she was much nicer than that. He knows his crowd so well. The fact that all of this is happening to Fox News people is also incredible. Like the idea of experiencing whatever the Donald Trump version is of an existential crisis and then expressing your distress into the like stuffed animal eyes of Steve Ducey's son. Or like just hopping on a Zoom call and you're in like the Fox and Friends studios, just like like a picture of him from like 2017 and then him just sort of over it maundering through his dreams is it's not like, it's actually like, I was going to say it's an undignified way to go out, but it's like, it is 100% the way that he would have drawn it up. Like the idea of just like, he wants at the end, like when the moment comes, he wants like Lou Dobbs to hold his hand and like, tell him everything's going to be okay.
I like it so much too, because it's like, for the people he's subjecting to this, they're not like, this is the most that like, I mean, I don't know. He probably calls himself like a Presbyterian, right? Because his mom was like a Scottish Presbyterian. But this is the most that like someone in the, generalized like Republican Protestant sphere has thought about like hell.
Guys that like go to church in a mall. Like this is as dark as it gets for them.
Yeah,
it is, but it's also it's probably the most self-aware. Because like, here's the thing. Donald Trump is not a Protestant and he's not a Christian. Like he is transparently one of the least pious men who's ever existed. And there is no way he actually believes in God. But I like that he's open to the possibility that if God exists and heaven and hell are real, I'm definitely going to hell. Yeah. He's like Jerry Lee Lewis in that. I mean, like, Dave, it's like, you're right. Like, you could only rape so many teenagers, allegedly. allegedly, and still expect to be embraced by St. Peter.
Do you think that, like, when during the abortive Ukraine talks, like, Putin was like, here, let me show you something, and, like, showed him the stuff from their oldest vault?
Yeah. And then he was like, no way, I'm going to heaven.
He was like, oh my God, I'm definitely not getting in then.
Sure, okay.
They are not letting me in.
I was hoping that St. Peter wouldn't have access to this video footage, but yeah.
I didn't let any of them into my buildings I own, so they're not letting me into heaven.
The version of Christianity that he has like sort of access to here, not just, I mean, it is like the bit that Felix was talking about, the idea of there being like actual earnest, like people that graduated from Hillsdale that believe that Donald Trump is like a Bible believing Christian who more or less wants to do right. Like that's incredible to me. But the versions of it that he usually has around him when he like has meetings with faith leaders is like, like these incredible mega church hogs. It's like just like a bunch of guys that look like Roger Clemens like praying over him, and he's sitting there with his eyes closed. It's one of my favorite of the
I love those images.
The genre
just
of
like,
it.
Yeah, it's 30 Roger Clemenses and their wife who also looks like Roger Clemens or Randy Johnson laying hands on him, and he's just sitting there with a shit-eating grin like, can you believe these?
Yeah, he's like, incredible. Let me know when this is over. It is really like an attempt to take like some of the John McNaughton paintings and then just like stage them in real life, which I think is incredible as a goal.
I love those. I like my favorite one is the one with it was from the first Trump administration, and Diamond and Silk were there. And this one was good because there were a lot of my favorite type of religious leaders. A pastor who's wearing a leather blazer.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of different, I mean, they're all, as I think Will is correct that they're all just like one way or another. They have a very 1998 Yankees energy about them, but there's different ways you can go. You can play with your look within those boundaries. The other one of Trump with faith leaders image that I want to shout out, I think people have sort of forgotten about this one, but it's really stayed with me, is when he went straight from the golf course to a church to get prayed over by, whatever, Andy Pettit. And it was a brief bit of conversation where they were like, is this a new haircut for him? Because he just had his hat on.
Yes.
And so his hair was pushed back, and he's up there and he's making the face, the can you believe that this guy is praying over me face? But he still has his fucking golf shoes on. They're the sort of saddle shoe, FootJoy ass, classico golf shoe style. Just on in front of this, a congregation that's more or less the size of a mid-major basketball arena, watching him stand there in the clothes that he just golfed 18 in while somebody spoke in tongues to him.
And he had that insane, slicked back hair. It looked like, when Lisa went out with Nelson Muntz and made him dress up like a nerd.
Yeah, Nelson Muntz in his Sunday best is a great look for Trump.
I have one more here from Trump's musings on the afterlife, and this is from about a year ago when Lex Friedman interviewed him. He was asked, "How often do you think about death? Are you afraid of it?" It says here, Trump didn't answer directly, but he spoke about the advantages of believing in an afterlife. If you're religious, you have, I think, a better feeling toward it, he said. You're supposed to go to heaven, ideally not hell. You're supposed to go to heaven if you're good. And
theologians are more or less in agreement on that one.
And I like this because I think this is the closest to his an authentic expression of disbelief from him, because he's you're supposed to go to heaven if you believe in it. But then he says, without belief, Trump couldn't imagine why anyone would behave morally. If you have heaven, if you don't have heaven, you almost say, what's the reason? Why do I have to be good? And that to me sums up what he actually believes in, which is just more or less a kind of nihilistic atheism, which there is no moral center to the universe or moral accounting for your actions after you die. So why not just do whatever you want to do? And I love that he can't conceive of a moral universe in which the fact that there is no afterlife, in fact, even more strongly compels you to act in a moral, decent way on this life.
Yeah, he's just I think it's basically he sort of had somebody do the numbers on can you fit camel through eye of needle? And then when you realize that the answer to that is no, it becomes a more complicated equation. But I think that understanding, it's weird to hear him. I mean, that's as close to insight as I think he actually gets. I mean, I think your point, Will, is correct about there's reasons to be good and reasons not to be good. And he has never been very inclined towards the reasons to be righteous or whatever. But the idea of what could it all mean? What could be more important than having more of everything and having a little bit of everybody else's everything right now? That is Trumpism in a nutshell. It's where the broader culture is at this moment. The fact that he sort of understands it and then is sort of I can see how this would be unappealing to people who believe that you should follow certain commandments so as not to be tormented by a demon forever. But I'm different.
Yeah. So those are his comments on the afterlife. Firmly down in the category of, if there is a heaven, I'm not going to it, and there is nothing I can do in my remaining hours on this planet that will change that. certainly true, but like an odd thing for a president of the United States to say. That's usually not the confidence that you want. You don't want to project that attitude, even if you believe it, if you're the leader of an entire country and indeed the world.